Garden night. Father Bennett places the candle on a small stone pedestal. The flame flickers as if whispering secrets to the night. He opens the book, its pages illuminated by moonlight and the candle's soft glow. Father Bennett. Solemnly, before we begin, I must ask one final time. Are you certain of this? Jameson. Firmly. Absolutely. Josie. Nods, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Father Bennett studies them for a moment, then nods, his kind smile offering reassurance. Father Bennett. Very well. Let us begin. He flips to a marked page and begins to recite a blessing. Jameson reaches for Josie's hand, and she takes it without hesitation. Suddenly, the faint sound of distant voices breaks through the quiet. Josie stiffens. Josie. Whispering. That's my father. He's coming this way. Jameson. Urgently. We don't have much time. Father Bennett quickens the pace, his voice steady but lower now. Father Bennett. Do you, Jameson Ward, take Josie Hall as your lawful wife, to love and cherish? The voices grow louder. Torchlight begins to pierce the darkness. Jameson. Interrupting. I do. Father Bennett. And do you, Josie Hall, take Jameson Ward as your lawful husband, to honor and stand by? Josie. Breathlessly. I do. Before Father Bennett can pronounce them husband and wife, the bushes rustle violently, and M.R. Hall, mid-50s, stern with an air of authority, bursts into the clearing, flanked by two burly men. Mr. Hall. Enraged. Josie. What do you think you're doing? Josie steps forward, her chin held high despite the fear in her eyes. Josie. Steadily. I'm doing what you never could, choosing love over control. M.R. Hall's eyes dart to Jameson, his expression darkening. Mr. Hall. To Jameson. You've poisoned her mind. You'll pay for this. The two men step forward as if to grab Jameson, but he doesn't flinch. Jameson. Calmly. If loving your daughter is a crime, then I'm guilty. But you can't stop us. Father Bennett. Interjecting. Mr. Hall, please, this is a sacred moment. Let them speak their truth. For a brief moment, M.R. Hall hesitates, his gaze flickering between Josie and Jameson. Mr. Hall. To Josie. Do you even understand what you're throwing away? Your future, your family, your security? Josie. Interrupting. None of that means anything if I can't be with him. M.R. Hall opens his mouth to argue but stops when M.R.S. Hall, early 50s, elegant but with kind eyes, appears behind him. Mrs. Hall. Softly. Let them go, Edward. M.R. Hall turns to her, shocked. Mr. Hall. But. Mrs. Hall. Placing a hand on his arm. Don't you remember us? Remember what we had to fight for? Her words land heavily. M.R. Hall's expression softens, though his pride struggles to let go. Mr. Hall. Begrudgingly. Fine. But if you fail, Josie, don't come running back to me. Josie. Quietly. I won't. M.R. Hall storms off, the two men following. M.R.S. Hall lingers, giving Josie a sad but approving smile before retreating into the shadows. Father Bennett clears his throat, regaining their attention. Father Bennett. Shall we finish what we started? Josie and Jameson exchange a look, their love unshaken. Jameson nods. Yes. Let's finish it. The ceremony resumes, their vows echoing through the garden as fireflies dance around them. Richard and Alara's estate. Living room, same time. Richard sets the letter down, his fingers tightening around the edges as if willing it to dissolve under his grip. The tension between the couple grows palpable. Richard. Love? Alara. What does a child know of love? She's foolish, impulsive, ruining everything we've planned for her. Alara pleading. Ruining what, Richard? Your plans for her to marry into power? To be a pawn in your business schemes? She's not a chess piece. Richard rises abruptly, pacing the room with sharp, purposeful strides. His voice drops to a menacing calm. Richard. She's my daughter. Our daughter. And she needs to understand that the life she's running from is a privilege, not a prison. Alara stands as well, her regal demeanor giving way to raw emotion. Alara. You've always seen her as an extension of yourself. But Richard, she's more than that. She's vibrant, passionate. She's everything we've forgotten how to be. For a moment, Richard pauses. Her words land heavier than expected. Richard, passion won't put a roof over her head or keep her safe from the world. Ilara crosses her arms, her gaze defiant. Ilara, and control won't make her love us. Richard gruffly. She'll come back. She has to. This little rebellion of hers won't last. He strides toward the window, staring out at the sprawling estate grounds as though expecting Alicia to suddenly appear. Ilara sinks back into the couch, tears brimming in her eyes. Ilara softly. What if she doesn't, Richard? What if we've lost her for good? The weight of her words hangs in the air. City street night. Alicia walks briskly through the bustling streets, her suitcase in hand. She glances over her shoulder now and then, paranoia creeping in. She clutches a crumpled address in her hand, her only lead to Ethan's apartment. The hum of the city surrounds her, a sharp contrast to the stifling silence of her parents' estate. For the first time, she feels free and terrified. Alicia, to herself. You can do this, Alicia. She grips the suitcase tighter, determination settling into her expression. Ethan's apartment night. A modest studio apartment. Ethan, 20s, rugged but kind, rushes to clear a cluttered table as Alicia knocks on the door. He opens it, his face lighting up when he sees her. Ethan. Alicia. You made it. Alicia steps inside, her tension melting into relief as Ethan pulls her into a warm embrace. Alicia, muffled. I left everything. Ethan pulls back to look at her, his expression serious. Ethan, are you sure about this? About us? Alicia meets his gaze, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions. Alicia, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Ethan nods, his grip on her hand firm. Ethan, then we'll figure this out together. The two sit on the small couch, the city lights streaming through the window as they plan their next steps. Richard in Ilara's estate. Study. Later that night. Richard sits alone in the dimly lit study, staring at Alicia's childhood photo on his desk. His expression is unreadable, but the storm in his eyes betrays his thoughts. A soft knock interrupts the silence. Ilara steps in, her presence tentative. Ilara. Still nothing? Richard shakes his head, his voice low. Richard. She's out there, Ilara. Somewhere in that world we tried so hard to protect her from. Ilara approaches, resting a hand on his shoulder. Ilara. Maybe it's time to trust her, Richard. To let her find her own way. Richard doesn't respond. His gaze remains fixed on the photo as a single tear slips down his cheek. Garden night. Father Bennett's voice resonates softly through the serene night air. Lanterns sway gently, casting warm glows on Josie and Jameson. They look lost in each other's gaze, unaware of the danger creeping closer. Father Bennett, through the bond of love, may they find strength and courage to face all challenges. The shadowy figure steps back into the darkness, phone still to their ear. Shadowy figure. Into phone urgent. I'll wait for your signal. Make it quick. The figure disappears behind the tree, leaving only the faint crunch of leaves. Near the edge of the garden, headlights flash in the distance. A sleek black SUV pulls up, its engine purring ominously. Two men in dark suits step out, their movements precise and deliberate. One of them speaks into an earpiece. Suited man 1. We're in position, waiting for confirmation. Garden, altar, night. The ceremony continues. Josie and Jameson exchange vows, their voices tender and heartfelt. Josie, you've always been my light in the dark, Jameson. No matter what, I choose you. A tear slips down her cheek as Jameson squeezes her hands. Jameson, and I choose you, Josie. Forever. Father Bennett smiles, lifting his hands to bless the union. Father Bennett, by the power vested in me. A loud crash interrupts the moment. The guests gasp, head snapping toward the source of the noise. The shadowy figure has pushed over a decorative lantern, creating a smoldering distraction near the entrance. The two suited men stride purposefully toward the garden, their eyes scanning for Josie. Jameson instinctively steps in front of Josie as the men approach. Suited man 1. Miss Whitaker, you need to come with us. Jameson, who the hell are you? Suited man 2. This doesn't concern you. Step aside. Josie clings to Jameson, her eyes wide with fear. Josie, no, they're my father's men. Jameson, overlapping. She's not going anywhere with you. The tension thickens. Father Bennett steps forward, his voice calm but firm. Father Bennett, this is sacred ground. Violence has no place here. The suited men exchange a glance before one of them pulls out a phone, dialing. Suited man 1. Into phone. We got a problem. Wooded area, night. The shadowy figure lingers nearby, listening intently, their face partially illuminated by moonlight. They whisper into their phone, their voice trembling. Shadowy figure. Into phone. She won't go willingly. Do we proceed? A cold voice replies, distorted by the speaker. Voice on phone. Take her. No loose ends. The shadowy figure hesitates, looking toward the garden where Josie and Jameson stand defiantly. Shadowy figure. Understood. They hang up, their resolve hardening as they step out of the shadows. The story now teeters on the edge of conflict, with danger closing in and Josie's determination to stay with Jameson being tested. Richard's car speeds through the bustling city, its headlights slicing through the darkness. Inside, Richard's jaw is clenched, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. Alara sits beside him, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. Richard's car. Alara, pleading. Richard, think this through. She's our daughter. Richard, cutting her off. And she's thrown everything we gave her away for him. Alara, softly. She's in love. Richard, angrily. Love doesn't justify rebellion. Alara sighs and looks out the window, worry etched on her face. Ethan's apartment night. A modest but cozy space. Alicia and Ethan sit on the couch, their hands intertwined. Alicia's eyes are puffy from crying. Alicia, quietly, they'll come for me. Ethan, firmly, then we'll face them together. Suddenly, a loud knock reverberates through the apartment. Alicia freezes, her grip tightening on Ethan's hand. Ethan, whispering, stay here. He gets up and heads toward the door, peeking through the peephole. Building hallway. Richard stands outside the door, his face a mask of fury. Alara lingers behind him, her expression torn between fear and concern. Richard, through the door. Open this door, Ethan, or I'll break it down myself. Inside, Alicia hears her father's voice and shrinks back. Ethan steels himself, his hand hovering over the doorknob. Ethan, to himself. Here we go. He unlocks the door and opens it slightly, enough to see Richard's face. Ethan, calmly. Mr. Carter. Richard, cutting him off. Don't Mr. Carter me. Where is she? Richard pushes past Ethan, his eyes scanning the room until they land on Alicia. Richard, angrily. Alicia, we're leaving. Now. Alicia, defiantly. I'm not going anywhere, Dad. Alara steps forward, her voice soft but firm. Alara. Richard, stop. Let's talk about this calmly. Richard ignores her, advancing toward Alicia. Ethan steps between them. Ethan, resolutely, you can't force her to leave. Richard, venomously, and who are you to stop me? The tension in the room is palpable. Alicia stands, her voice trembling but determined. Alicia, standing her ground. I'm not a child anymore. You don't get to decide my life for me. Richard falters for a moment, Alara placing a hand on his arm. Alara, softly. Richard, please. Listen to her. Richard's face softens slightly, his anger giving way to frustration and hurt. Richard, quietly. Alicia, this isn't the life we wanted for you. Alicia, tearfully. But it's the life I want. The room falls silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. The gathered friends and family clap hesitantly, unsure of what to do in the tension-filled atmosphere. The fireflies twinkle like tiny stars as Josie and Jameson hold each other, their kiss sealing their commitment. Richard, turning to leave. You're making a mistake, Josie. But it's your life. Josie, calling after him. It's not a mistake, Dad. It's love. Richard pauses, his back to her. Alara places a hand on his arm, stopping him from responding. Instead, he exhales sharply and continues walking toward the car. Alara, quietly to Josie, he'll come around, darling. Just give him time. Josie nods, her resolve unwavering. Richard's car night. Richard grips the steering wheel tightly as they drive away. The silence between him and Alara is thick. Finally, Alara speaks. Alara, you can't control everything, Richard. She's not a child anymore. Richard, she's throwing her life away for some boy who can't offer her stability. Alara, softly, maybe love is the only stability she needs. Richard glances at Alara, her words hitting deeper than he'd admit. He says nothing as they drive into the night. As the celebration resumes, Jameson takes Josie's hands in his. Jameson, you okay? Josie, smiling. I'm better than okay. I've never felt freer. Their friends cheer and begin to dance under the twinkling fairy lights. Father Bennett lingers nearby, watching the couple with a knowing smile. Josie and Jameson's small apartment, days later. The tiny space is cozy, decorated with mismatched furniture and hand-drawn sketches pinned to the walls. Josie sits at the kitchen table, a notebook in front of her, writing furiously. Jameson enters, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. Jameson, you've been at it all morning. What are you working on? Josie, grinning. A plan. Jameson, for? Josie, for us. I'm going to start my own design studio, and you're going to open that garage you've been dreaming about. Jameson, half laughing. That's ambitious. Josie, mock serious. No, it's love. Jameson leans down, kissing her forehead. Jameson, whatever it is, I'm in. Richard's office night. Richard sits alone in his grand office, nursing a glass of whiskey. The room is dimly lit, the city skyline glowing in the background. He stares at a framed photo of Josie as a child on his desk. Alara enters quietly, carrying a stack of papers. Alara, she sent us something. Richard looks up, puzzled. Alara hands him an envelope. Inside is an invitation to a small reception Josie and Jameson are hosting at their apartment to celebrate their union. Richard, quietly, she's still trying to include us. Alara nods, sitting beside him. Alara, because she still loves us, Richard, even if you don't agree with her choices. Richard's gaze lingers on the invitation. His stoic expression cracks slightly, showing the faintest trace of doubt and regret. Josie and Jameson's apartment. Reception night. The apartment is alive with laughter and music. Josie and Jameson greet their guests, the love between them radiating. As Josie glances toward the door, her smile falters. Standing there, looking awkward and out of place, are Richard and Alara. Josie, whispering to Jameson. They came. Jameson squeezes her hand. Richard steps forward, clearing his throat. Richard, Josie, I just wanted to say, Josie, interrupting, smiling. I'm glad you're here, Dad. That's all that matters. Richard looks at her, his tough exterior softening as he finally pulls her into a hug. Richard, quietly, I just want you to be happy. Alara watches with tears in her eyes as Josie and Richard reconcile. The family, though fractured, begins to heal amidst the warmth of love and celebration. The camera pans out, showing the glowing apartment surrounded by the vast cityscape. Fireflies flit through the night as laughter and music fill the air, a symbol of hope, unity, and the enduring power of love.